Well, greetings. Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. This podcast is going to be a demonstration of the interactive player boards and some of the functionality that's built into the simulator. I had a specific question from David. So David, this podcast is specifically for you. I'm going to be diving into how the simulator is set up and where some of the buttons are. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you up over here what team needs. And every team on this simulator has their own player board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down to the Eagles. And here we are right here. Okay. And I want you to focus your eyes on the player list over here on the far right. So find the Eagles. Scroll right and look at the player list. This is a player board specific to the Eagles. This player board is here based upon fans doing mock drafts for the Eagles. Okay. And right now, let's look. Like, I want you to observe Tyler Warren is currently 20th. I want you to observe Denzel Burke is 19th. I want you to observe, that's a good place to start. And then I'm looking for Colston Loveland. So Colston Loveland is 27th. Okay. So remember, Loveland is 27. Remember, Warren is 20. And remember, Burke is 19. 19, 20, 27. Those are the numbers we're going to remember. Okay, let's come back in. Let's do some mock drafts. So I'm going to do single player draft. And then there's this thing here called the first round challenge. So I'm going to check that box over here to the right. Okay. And I think your question was, how do people vote? How did I generate that graphic where people voted? I think that was the message that you sent me. So the way that you vote is with these buttons over here. And for this podcast, I'm going to do a first round challenge and I will do a second round challenge. So I'm going to pick the Eagles. First round challenge is checked. And what a first round challenge is 5 unique first rounds. And remember that 19, 20, 27. Okay. So 19, Burke. See, he's at the top of the board and he's 19. You can see Tyler Warren here. He's 20. So if in round 1 you would take Tyler Warren, I'm going to pick Warren. And that was one of my 5 first round selections. So now we're going to go through, we're going to do a second first round. Okay. So you can see again, Colston Loveland is 27. So if you would take Colston Loveland in round 1, go ahead and pick him. So I'm going to pick Loveland. He was 27 when I picked him, and Burke was still 19. Okay, so now it's going. So I've done 2 of my 5 unique first round drafts. So a first round challenge is 5. You get to vote 5 times. It's not like a presidential election. You can vote more than once, right? So you're voting 5 times for your 5 best first round picks for the Eagles. Okay, so in this case, Burke was taken in the mock earlier, so you can see him here. So that's the reason why he's not displayed here. But he's still 19th or 20th on the player board, right? He's probably one of the players that's here. So who else would you take? So I'm going to pick Shamar Stewart. Observe that Stewart is 26. I've done 3 of my 5 unique mocks. Okay. So now it's going to go through and do it again. So, Burke is available this time. He's 19. Okay. So who else would you take in round 1? And I'm purposely looking for players that are down here. And I'm actually going to go to like the 3rd page because this is where the demonstration gets pretty cool. So I am going to look, I'm going to give you a new name. And that name is Joshua Gray from Oregon State. So he's 63 on the player board. And I'm going to give you Joshua Gray in round 1. Not because I think Howie Roseman would pick him. I'm doing that because it's going to make for a good demonstration. I picked a player that was 63rd on the player board, and I picked him in round 1. Okay, I've got 1 more to go. So if you look carefully, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Shamar Stewart, and Joshua Gray. Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Shamar Stewart, Joshua Gray were my 4 first-round picks. The simulator knows to make sure that they're gone before the Eagles pick, right? So think of it as like a team traded up and took Warren, a team traded up and took Loveland. Who are you going to take, right? That's kind of how it's programmed. Okay, so I'm going to look for one other player. Let's look for an edge. And I'm looking for like a Howie Roseman edge if I could think of one. I might go Izaraku. I'm going to go Braden Swinson from LSU. Observe he's 104 on the player board. Okay, so these are my 5 votes. Okay, so these were my 5 votes for the Eagles' first-round pick. Swinson, edge from LSU. Joshua Gray, he's listed as a tackle here. He can pretty much play anywhere along the line, and he's probably going to be a top 75 player. Shamar Stewart, Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren. Okay, so let's quickly look, and I want to specifically focus on Gray and Swinson. So here's the Eagles player board, right? So I'm going to refresh that window. Okay, and let's look and see. Burke is still 19. Warren is still 20. Those guys didn't move. Loveland was 27. He moved up to 25. So the simulator is dynamic. The more you pick a player, the more they're moving up. But picking them once isn't going to be enough to move them up. Okay? The algorithm is designed that you'll probably have to pick, like for Loveland, to go all the way up. He's going to need to be the first-round pick somewhere between 10 and 40 times. And that's going to be plus or minus. It's going to depend on a lot of factors. And I'm not going to get into all those here. But for Loveland to move up, it's going to take more than 1 pick. He moved up 2 spots. And then one of the other guys I took was Gray, right? So let's look up Gray. So Gray, I think he was 60 at the time I picked him. He's up to 50 now. And then the other player I took was Swinson. Swinson was in the 100s and he moved up to 69. So just taking him in the first round once moved him up 30 spots. Okay, so the simulator's dynamic. This is what we mean by fans voting. Okay, so another way that you can vote is we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do it differently. So we're going to go Philadelphia, but this time I'm going to do a second round challenge. So a first round challenge was 5 unique round 1s. A second round challenge is 10 unique round 2s. There's nothing that says you can't take the same player in round 1. Okay. So what I'm going to do right now is I am going to do Project Colston Loveland. Okay. So I'm going to go Eagles second round challenge. And here's what I mean by that. I'm going to see if I can get Loveland to go to the top. I will probably fail, but we'll check to see where Loveland is. And then we'll see how high we can get him. So the simulator is going to go do what it does. And if we look right now, Loveland is 5th on the draft card. See right here? So he's 5th. He's 25. And Burke is still 19. So I'm hoping to see Burke drop to 20. That's when I know I've got really good control of the board. So I'm going to pick Colston Loveland in round 1 if he's ever available. And then I have to come up with 10 guys that the Eagles would like in round 2. So if Stewart is there in round 2, is he the pick? Of course. So I'll pick him there. And if you can pick the player at the top, then that means that the player boards are working, because that's the player you're like, well, of course, if that guy's in round 2, of course I'm going to pick him. Okay, so notice Loveland has already moved from 25 to 23 with just one first-round pick. Burke is still 19. So now I'm going with Loveland. Okay, and very similar to what the simulator did before, except now it's going to do it in round 2. So here's the Eagles pick. So if we look at pick 51, wow, it's the player that I took in round 2 before. Okay, would you take Landon Jackson in round 2? Of course you would. So this is me voting for my second-round picks. I still get to make the first-round picks, but I'm voting for the second-round picks. Okay, so Loveland is 21, and Burke isn't available, but Burke is still probably player 19. Okay, so I picked Loveland again. Would you take Mike Green in round 2? Of course you would. So I'm picking him there. So ultimately, every team has the ability to do this, right? So we're still using player boards that I set up in June and July, and the player boards in the simulator are about to be updated. But I haven't done that yet. I'm going to wait probably about 3 weeks to see who's going back to school before I update. It's a little bit of work, so I try not to do that very often. So again, Loveland is 21, and you can see Burke is still 19. So I'm continuing to pick Loveland even though he's 21. And I'm trying to see, I want to see Burke drop more than I want to see Loveland go up, because when Burke drops, that's when I know I have a lot more control over the top of the board. And then who else would you do in round 2? Joshua Gray from Oregon State. He was actually one of the guys I just grabbed in the first round challenge, but he's definitely a round 2 guy that you want to get eyes on. If Philadelphia, I think Lane Johnson is still there, right? So he could replace Lane Johnson. He's probably going to play guard at the NFL level. But okay, so in this case, Loveland was taken earlier. So I'm going to go with Siobhan Ravel, who's 37th, and I'm going to pick him. And that's going to move him from 37 to something higher. And again, this is an interactive simulator. That means any mock draft you do, you're going to get this level of movement on the player board. So here's another player that you may like, Mason Taylor in round 2. So observe he's 55 on the player board. So we have to remember 55, and we'll check my work when I'm done. Okay, so here's Loveland again. So this is the 6th straight 2-round draft that I've done. I've picked Loveland. I was able to pick Loveland in 5 of the 6. Okay. Cam Williams, offensive tackle from Texas. If he's there in round 2, I think you grab him. I don't think he would last that long in the draft. Anytime you can pick the player at the top of the draft card, it's going to give you an A+. So when you see my report card come out at the end of the simulation, the players at the top of the card are the ones that give you the A+. So I'm going to go with Loveland again. And we've done 7 of the 10 unique 2-round mocks. Maxwell Hairston is 58th on the board. I'm going to pick him. I think he would go in round 2. I think Howie Roseman would take a corner in round 2. Like Eagles fans always tell me, like, you got to make Howie picks. Like if you understand the Eagles, you have to make Howie picks. I don't know if Colston Loveland's a Howie pick, but it was good for a demonstration. So we're still going with Loveland there. And at this point, I'm in the middle of my 8th of 10 unique 2-round mocks. So a second-round challenge is 10 unique 2-round mocks, and this is me voting for my second-round pick. So, again, if Princely Umalalen is there in round 2 for the Eagles, I think you grab him. And he was sitting there right at the top of the board. So Loveland is here again. So this is my 9th of 10 unique 2-round mocks. Okay, so let's look for some other players that you might. So we need to talk about Swinson. So he's 69 right now. So I'm going to pick him in round 2. Okay, so this is my 10th and final 2-round mock, David. So I am going to. So Ravel was 37th the last time I picked him. Now he's 35. So I'm going to pick Ravel again. Loveland was not available. Okay. And part of what makes this simulator different is every time you come in, it's going to be a little different because fans of all 32 teams are doing mocks. So different players are going to be taken in round 1 or 2 for the team. And it's a much more dynamic experience. Okay, so if we look at all the players that were taken before the Eagles pick, you see Stewart, Jackson, Green, Gray, Taylor, Williams, Hairston, Umalalen, and Swinson. So the simulator forced those picks. And that's because those were the players that the Eagles took in round 2. The simulator is going to make sure that they were off the board the next time you picked in the second round. And one other player that we should probably talk about is Nick Emmanwori from South Carolina. So he was 96th at the time that I picked him. So observe that the players who were at the top of the draft card got an A+. Okay? So if a player's at the top of the draft card and you draft him, your grade for that player is an A+. Basically, it's a group project. They're basically saying you agree with the people that did the mock drafts before you that, of course, that's who you would pick. Okay? But any of the other guys I picked moved up the board. So here's what I mean by that. So let's go back here and let's refresh the player board. And let's look at Swinson. So Swinson was 69, and he moved up to 63 with 1 second-round pick. Okay, let's look at another guy that I took, Gray. So let's look at Gray. So Gray stayed at 50. He didn't move much. Mason Taylor, 55. Hairston, 56. Okay, so for the most part, they're staying. What did Ravel go to? Ravel went from 37 to 35 to 33. He was 37th. I grabbed him, I believe it was the 5th time, and he moved from 37 to 35. And then I also picked Ravel the 10th time, and he moved from 35 to 33. Okay, so you can see the players are moving up. So anytime you do a mock draft, players are moving. So I can demonstrate that for you just by doing a normal mock. So it doesn't matter how a fan uses the simulator, the boards are going to move. So I'm going to do a 5-round Philly mock. And the reason is I can't do a 4 because I believe Philadelphia doesn't have a 4th. So I want to show you that even in the late rounds that works. Okay. So I'm going to do Loveland here. Okay, I'm going to get the Eagles the edge. So Landon Jackson's there, but I'm going to see if there's another guy. Oh, yeah, I know who. Okay, so here's one of the guys you like, right? You like Antoine Powell-Ryland. Observe that he's 191 on the board. So I'm going to pick him in round 2. He was 191. Please remember 191. Okay, and then, okay, Gray is there in round 3. Is there another offensive lineman I like? So Zabel. I'm trying to find a guy that's further down. Good one. Okay, Howie pick. Jaden Roberts. He's 216. So every single mock is voting for somebody. I don't want you to think it's just a first-round challenge or just a second-round challenge. The first and second-round challenges are more fun because you're talking about the most popular players. But as you get deeper into the draft, it still works. You're still moving players up. So, okay, what else would the Eagles need? Every team drafts a wide receiver and a corner. So what's a wide receiver that we'd want to talk about? And I'm looking for somebody. Okay, Kyron Lacey from LSU. He's 196. Okay, and the Eagles have a couple of round 5 picks. Okay, so I think the Eagles need a linebacker. And again, Higgins is there. I would love him. But again, I'm doing this for demonstration purposes. So looking for a guy maybe to give a shout out to. Okay, Kaiser from Notre Dame. He's 472. We'll make him an Eagle linebacker. And then let's go with running back in round 5. And I'm purposely looking pretty deep on the running back list. Bashel Tutin. He's 320. You are a Philadelphia Eagle. Do the Eagles have one more 5th-round pick? Nope. Okay. So you can see I got a lot of Ds. Okay, again, mock drafting is a group project. So I picked some guys that were pretty far down the default board that had been loaded in June. Like I said, I haven't updated the board, and we're not in mock draft season, so fans aren't picking all these players yet. But let's go in to that board, and let's look up Tutin. So Tutin moved up to 320. Did Kaiser move? Kaiser stayed where he was. Okay, so I have to go take a look at something now. But I'm going to do that after the podcast ends because all of those guys down here should have moved up, including Roberts. Roberts looks like he moved up a little bit, but not much. These guys right here should have moved up a decent amount just to get pretty close to the top, but something is off. So I got to go check out something. But that's also one of the reasons I haven't reset the player board yet. So that's the demonstration. And if you have any questions, give me a shout out. I will send this link to this to you in a private message as soon as I close this out. So thanks, David, for the question. Hope that demonstration was helpful. and appreciate everybody that was listening and following very, very much. Thank you.